Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nitsa coming back with another buzz out of a tutorial here today. I got a real nice one right here. ESTG. Let's go. Let's listen to it right away. Let's play the reference track first, then we're gonna go over my vocal chain and how we got it sounding. I feel like very, very close, very spot on. That's all we do around here. We drop gems and we hit the target. So if you guys do have any more ideas for any like different types of artists y'all want to see, or any, you know, different video ideas you like to see, drop it down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, so there we go with our vocal chain right there. I feel like I was very accurate on this one. I'm really excited to bring this one. So let's jump right into the chain. So the very first thing that we have right here is I noticed that with, you know, Guy's vocal, paying attention to the reference track, you know, is always a good way you guys should do. You know, pull out a reference track real quick. You know, compare your music to the industry, right? Because you're competing with people in the industry, right? You trying to, you know, put your music at the top. You want to, you know, knock off, you know, some of your favorite artists. Well, you got to listen to their tracks and compare it. So I noticed he had a bright vocal. So I was very delicate with my low pass filter. That's the only thing that I could really say about that. But main thing here is that I feel like with EQ, you shouldn't really be trying to add what's not already there. You should, you know, try to get a good vocal take and shape around what you already do have, right? So if I wanted brightness, I knew I wanted to use natural brightness. So that's why I had a very subtle, you know, filter this way, okay? So pretty much that's all I wanted to say about that. Next thing that we have is right here, a 3A. I actually copied my hardware settings from the 3A and I dropped it right here for y'all. So, you know, y'all have, you know, the settings that I use on my real 3A in real life. So yeah, the most important thing that I want to talk about right here is not doing too much gain reduction, about 1 to 3 dB, right? We're pushing the gain pretty hard. I like the way the output sounds. And we always got to understand too that, you know, with the input trim, right, how hard you hit in these plugins is going to determine the sounds, right? So that's how analog hardware is in real life, you know, depending on how hard you do hit the you know, unit, it will give you a sound, and that's before you even pull out the peak reduction, right? So understanding that, I lowered down the you know, input trim. I didn't want to hit it too hard, and I turned my peak reduction kind of up. So I still got 1 to 3 dB. It was two ways to get it. I could have hit it hard and got 1 to 3, or I could have hit it soft and still got 1 to 3 and turned it up. So always think about that. Next thing that I want to have you guys considered is the analog. I always hear people say, oh, you got to take off the noise. You got to take off the noise. Yo, you got to quiet down the track. But in reality, you know, over time I realized that the noise is pretty important. The noise gives it texture, right? And I'm actually using the noise as a means of separation, right? But I still keep myself in check though, right? Because when you check the RVOX, I got my gate. So look at my gate right here on my RVOX. Look at that. That's the noise right there. I still get the benefits of the noise, but I'm using the gate to cut it out. So don't let people tell you, oh, don't use the noise, or don't let people tell you to not use anything at all. You know, it depends on how the song sounds, right? Because I use the analog noise to give my voice texture, right? So the beat is clean, right? The beat is doing this thing, right? But then the noise is letting the people know. The noise is only triggering when the lead vocal is coming in, right? That's what the gate is doing it, right? This gate don't open until a signal passes through it, right? So be smart about it. You can still take advantage of the analog noise, but just, you know, throw a gate on it, or maybe you don't even have to do that. But the noise is a tool. That's why it's there, right? Then we got a little C4, you know, nothing crazy, default preset, opened up the bands. I did change the attack and the release times, depending on the flow, you know, the way somebody's rapping, how much, you hear how he's rapping, how much cash you got for G, how much bro. So I kind of went with some slower releases, right? Just because I didn't want to let go of the low end too quickly, right? But, you know, usually you want to open up the bands and start out. And then, you know, if you do hear like it kind of sounds funky or the compression is starting to lag behind, you have to learn how to listen to the compression, right? When the compression is not vibing with the flow. The way the rapper is flowing is very important to how you do your compression settings. And on a multi-band, that's no exception. It's also the same there, right? So I was aggressive with my threshold right here, and I used it as a de-esser too, right? So I'm just loving the C4. It's a staple on every single plugin, on every single vocal chain. Next thing we have right here is the Shep 73. The Shep 73 was the main real driving force of this whole vocal chain. Y'all gonna see, right? You know, and pretty much with that is the flow of the rapper told me what plugin I had to use. You got to pay attention to when the person is rapping in real life and hearing, you know, what they're giving to the microphone, right? So because of the ESTG, the way his vocal is, right, he has those nuances. How much cash, like he does his thing with his tongue, you know what I'm talking about. where it's like it's his unique sound, right? And Michael Jackson, he was one of them boys too that he was the king of nuances. Like he used to do all them little high notes and them little high sounds. That was Michael Jackson's sound. You know, go ahead, go listen to some of his tracks back in the day and pay attention. The nuances of a vocal, right, is the main characteristics. You got to keep the nuances of a vocal, right? And the nuances also tell you the proximity too, right? Because when somebody is closer to you, you can hear their breaths, you can hear their lips smacking as they're talking, you can hear all of these things that make the characteristics of the song, right? And I feel like it's important to retain it, to keep it real. That's the thing about rap music. People want to relate to it. It's not like the other genres where you could kind of get away with not being relatable. So in a rap vocal, I think it's vital to maintain the nuances of a vocal, right? And that's why I use plugins that will enhance it, right? And then we used a little bit of the preamp on the 73, you know. I like the 73 because it's very broad, right? In the beginning, I feel like if you're an engineer, you got to learn how to use the broad plugins before you know how to use the intricate plugins, right? Because you could be digging yourself into a hole if you're using like Fab Filter as your first EQ and you barely know what you're doing. You're just going to keep notching and notching and notching. Try to perfect, you know, the broad EQs, right? These frequencies are all lined up. The reason why we emulated something like this from all the way back in the day is because it's still works to this day. It's a reason, right? Okay, next thing right here is a de-esser, right? So as y'all can hear, I mean, it's not gonna get closer than that. It's not really gonna get closer than that. You know I gotta sauce these up for you. Y'all know I'm gonna slide for y'all, man. Any vocal chain y'all want, drop it down below. You know that's all we do around here, bring that value. And of course, these videos are never about copying the artist. The main reason why I make these videos, I wanna establish this, is because I just wanna give some flowers to the engineer, right? The engineer, they be sliding, like they really do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I feel like it's just a shame that sometimes when I, you know, punch in the name of the song, I can't even find an engineer. But it is what it is, you know. That's just the part of the game. That's the part of the job, you know. Producers stay in the background and some people like that better, so I get it. And the main thing with the ESTG vocal is that you can just hear that the texture, right? You know, just the feel of it, just the feel of it. It's not just about making it clean or making it muddy. It's never about that, guys. It's about making it tangible, making it 3D, making it jump out of the speakers, making it sound like a conversation on the street, because that's what helps the audience make a connection to a song. It becomes more than a song. It becomes perspective. All right, so the very next thing, let's look at this right here, right? You got this right here, right? And it looks like with Studio Rack, this very first slot actually is kind of like it's not a parallel slot. It's like I don't know how to say it. It's like like a pass through, you know, all of the stuff is going to remain the same, right? But I use the Shep 73 for more color, right? I'm going to be using saturation of the 73 to create that separation between my lead vocal and my effects, right? So, you know, we rolled off, you know, 80 hertz. So this is actually rolling off 80 hertz out of everything coming in there. And it's actually pretty good with this, you know, chain. You know, all the plugins is the Gold Plus plugins. So y'all can get them outside of the 3A and the 73, you know. So I'm always trying to use plugins that everybody can get for these, right? And still make it sound good. But you can control all of these with this just EQ right here, right? So that's the good thing about Studio Rack. It's like my control desk right here. And then we got the H delay, you know, a fourth slap, nothing crazy, going into an R compressor. So I'm just creating that separation in that dimension, establishing, okay, you know, with my delay, this is the dry vocal, but this is the delay too, right? Because it has a sidechain filter, which is inputted right here, right? Studio Rack input. And then we have the imager tucking it in, right? I'm just trying to make sure with this one that not necessarily that you know, the listener can hear all the delays, because on the reference track you can't hear the delays. So, you know, delays is not always about people hearing it. It's about, you know, creating dimension and creating the space, creating the overall sound stage, so it sounds like an open space that the listener can engage in and get themselves into it, right? Then we got an H delay on ping pong, nothing too crazy. And then after that, S1 stereo imager, you know, just widening that a little bit. So I'm, you know, using the stereo imager. This is the little room, but then this is the, you know, living room, right? A space within a space. Then we got the 73, right? And I'm using the drive, I'm using distortion, right? To push into this reverb to give the reverb more texture. So I'm using that crunch purposely to enhance the nuances. That's what engineering is all about, you know, for raps specifically, enhance those nuances, right? Nowadays, a lot of people, they only do a lead vocal. So you got to make sure that lead vocal is really good and that it has enough for the listener to feast on, right? It's kind of like when you're an engineer, you're kind of like a chef. You got to make a full course meal out of what you got. You know, sometimes you don't got a whole chicken. Sometimes you only got a drumstick. So you got to do what you got to do to stretch it, you know? If I only got a lead vocal, I got to make sure I get a good take from the artist. And then when I'm inside of the DAW, I'm doing everything that I can to enhance the nuances, characteristics, and the personality of the vocal. Okay, so then we have another, another reverb right here, but this is a little bit bigger. It's a hall and everything like that, and a side chain, right? So this is kind of like my, just my little play, and then that's my hall, creating the soundstage using delays, reverbs. It's not something that you can do with just one plugin. Width, density, depth, these are not things that you can just do with one plugin, one trick. No, it's something that you do gradually over your entire mix. And a part of that is just you understanding that, you know? You just understanding that, hey, every little move I make is like laying down a brick and I'm building up this house, which is my song. So after that, we have the doubler. Basic doubler, Nix preset, nothing crazy, just gave it a little bit more width and, just EQing that a little bit. And then we have the V comp, which I love, diode bridge compression, not pushing this too hard. So you can hear the parallel compression. It kind of brings up, it just brings up the, all of the traits, the good traits. You hear that, and all that spitting that Guy does, like he that's his sound. Go listen to his songs. That's what he do. When he be rapping, it kind of sounds like he's like he's kind of smacking his lips, but that's his flow, that's his swag, that's what makes him unique. As an artist, you got to figure out what your cadence is and what's that special thing about your voice. Once you figure out what that is, sometimes you might be in the studio and one of your homeboys might tell you what it is, but when the day you do figure it out, right, it's gonna take you a lot of songs to figure it out. But when you do figure out what your special sauce is, right, because everybody got their own sauce, attack it. And, just, make it so prominent. Guy, he just realized that, some people, it's just the way they talk. They already know it's the way they talk. They come in the mic and it's natural, but some people got to figure it out. So once you figure out what your nuance, your characteristic or your voice is, attack it and do everything you can inside of the mix to enhance it. Or find an engineer who understands your voice, right? That's important. You could have an amazing engineer, but they don't know how to get the most out of your voice, right? So that's what you need to be focused on. It's not about who's got the best skills, but who has the best skill set for you, all right, as a rapper. So think about that. And the next thing that we got right here is the vocals. Ooh, we was having fun with them vocals, those ad-libs, right? Ooh, we was having fun with them ad-libs. And them ad-libs, let's go back and listen to them. That's why ad-libs is so important. It's helping let the listener know that this is, ad-libs are the backyard. You heard how in the beginning the ad-libs sounded like they was on top, but now the ad-libs just sound like they're in the backyard of the house, which is like this whole mix that we're building, right? I love using that analogy. I'm gonna keep going with it. And we do that with frequency, right? We rolled off low end. It's all about distance. It's not always about things being more or less muddy. It's all about distance, right? Making the sound stage, letting the listener know, hey, this is where the vocal at, this is where the ad-libs at, and this is the whole song all together, right? We're telling the listener where everything is at, right? And with the ad-libs, to pay attention to how I did some patterns. I did like, yeah. That's what you should do as a rapper too. Give them a little melody, give them a little spice. They don't always want to hear what you already gave them on top with the lead vocal. You already gave them a whole verse and hook with that. Switch it up on the ad-libs. Give them a different cadence, a different tone, a different whatever. Just make it stand out. All right, so with this EQ, I did not roll off too much top because I wanted to make sure that I still had some of that fundamental of the ad-libs, if I can say that, if that's appropriate. That's how I'm using that word. And we boosted that up right here around 3K just to give it a little bit more audibleness, right? So we can understand what he's saying. And then we have the input, right? So on the lead vocal, the 76 was Blackie, but on the ad-libs, it's Bluey. I'm using contrast, right? The contrast between bluey and blacky to also create distance. So that's what I'm saying. Width, depth, height, all of these things in mixing is not done with one plugin. It's done gradually using methodical moves. And that's another small move that you can use. The attack time isn't all the way fast. Usually I would do something like that, but I rolled it back a little bit because I wanted the ad-libs to still sound open so they can be inviting and bring the listener in. I could have slammed the door shut all the way with the fastest attack, but that would have took out all the punch. And you know, I didn't go too aggressive with the EQ. I think how much? Let's see. Nothing crazy. We just tickling it, right? And just cutting off that little the little top, but nothing crazy. And when you have it on all ratio, I'm gonna go into this further in another video with the 1176 deep dive. But with that, you know, the ratio actually, when you have it on all ratio, the attack is as fast as it can be, apparently, compared to all the other ratio settings, right? And that's all coming down to the knee. The way the knee is, it's like straight like this, cut. It's like if you had a barber, you know, cutting somebody's hair with a scissor, clap, clap, versus if they had like maybe like a shaver, a different type of razor where it would be smoother. So that's how you can see ratios as well. Next thing that we have right here is a Shep 73, texture, recreating distance. We're letting them know it's the backyard by using distortion. We're using drive, we pushing it 20, right? I actually prefer the distortion more from the UAD 73, but the Shep 73 will do just as fine as well. It's still a great plugin, and we rolled off a lot of lows, and you know, we boosted a little bit of top. You know, I love how it's broad. I don't usually use boosted EQ, but if it's broad, I kind of like it because it's gonna just, you know, get the job done. It's gonna be gradual, right? Then the R box, mostly for the gate, right? Just to make the ad-libs sound abrupt. It sounds like the ad-libs are just shooting through a door versus when it was dry, it just sounded like it was on top and it had no place, right? So you got to use all of these different things to push things back and pull things forward. Push and pull is how I see it. Nothing crazy with the delays, you know, everything that we've seen right here. Eighth note dotted actually, and the delays are pretty low. I didn't want to use too much reverb and delay because I know I still wanted it to be dry so the listener could pay attention to it. You know, when you use too much delay and reverb, it kind of washes away everything. So that's why you should kind of be moderate with how you go about it. And then lastly, 1176 on Bluey, just enhancing it, making it brighter. And we use some distortion right here on the Shep 73. Let's not forget about that. So that's pretty much the whole video that we got here today. If you guys do have any more comments or suggestions down below, let me know.